Something's wrong with that. I would think you are one of those guys who used to play with brick games, such kind of toys. I've always been interested in technology, and I've also always been interested in fixing problems. But IT in itself came up after I found my field of passion, after I got into computer science and figured out the compute space. So when I went to specialize, I realized I could do IT support, which stole my heart. Wow. Yeah. So where did you specialize, at which university? I studied at Kenyatta University. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Life must have been interesting, being a public university. A public university has a great deal of freedom. There is also a very huge, there is a very large community. There was a great deal of what I could do because of the public space. I was able to start a business right in the campus and provide support to a great deal of students while in university. So I think because of it being public, it provided enough market for me to do such a venture while still studying. What are some of the things that you'll do for students? I hear some of the guys who are used to complain that people will sell them data and then revoke their access to it. Yeah. The only thing with students is my only point of contention was students always try to get a lower price for the services rendered. But I would say my services were awesome because I always got the students coming back for the service. That was one. And then for the other, they were always giving me referrals to their friends. So I had both return customers and referrals. But being a student, you didn't actually tell if that money they were giving you was insufficient or it was little. Not. It was very little money. But how will you quantify little being a student yourself? Because I knew the market value of the services I was providing. I had done my research. Research is one of the core things you have to do as an IT professional. It's part and parcel of being an IT person. But that research never covered students, among students, in public university for say. It actually doesn't really matter. The service is the same, regardless of whether you're a student or not. That student, if the student goes out to a technician who's running a business outside, they would pay the same price as though they were in working class. Unless the technician is willing to give them a discount, which would be a discount, but the price would be the price. The services cost what they cost. Okay, but I heard you mention something about providing services to people, so I think like you are not inclined toward the financial aspect of the service you're providing, but mostly the experience and that is giving you the satisfaction that you're getting from providing the service. Yes, when you're providing a service, you'd want to provide the most value you can to your client. That's very core to how the business works. However, the business also runs on money, so you have to get the return in order to sustain your business. Well, but still on that, so somehow
I think you guys were being given a good chunk of help. So with help and what you're telling me, I don't think you should even focus so much on that. Oh, you still needed to look at the financial aspect, given that you are not looking to scale, but to get the knowledge aspects. Yeah. So
I did price back in campus. I did price myself very fairly, I would say. I think that's part of the reason why I was able to get clients without a lot of selling. So I would get a great deal of clients without doing a lot of selling because of the way I was priced.
yeah, and also when you offer good service, I think the word of mouth will spread like fire.
Yeah.
In Hay. Wow.
With provision of great service, you get free marketing. Essentially, your clients become your marketing agents, and they are the best agents you can have.
How diverse were the services that you were providing back then?
I was limited to end users because these are students using their individual devices. Yeah, so anything that has to do with the end user, I didn't do anything to do with servers at the campus level.
And most of those services, I'll guess, you didn't consider most of the ethical part of doing business, I'll guess, because most of those students, I think, could not afford some of the softwares and the cost of maintenance and the service packages and all that to do with the Windows OS, Windows 7 back then and 8. I think they couldn't get the full product key and you had to maybe hack. Those are the services you are providing.
I wouldn't say I was hacking anything. I'm not a hacker.
Yeah, well, I'm just talking of ethics, the moral aspect of working with such a young market. They don't actually understand because they are limited financially. They might opt like you have to help them in certain things, like previously I mentioned access to cheap data bundles and maybe providing them with antiviruses at a certain cost, which you've already maybe downloaded or you worked around your way around it.
There are ways of working with a lower budget client without necessarily breaking the law. Yeah, so you do find ways to work within the client's means. So I was able to provide services based on their capacity to afford those services.
Seems dodgy. Because I'll think, how would you work your way around it?
If someone is looking for a solution, let's say for a word processor, there are options for open source word processors that you can offer them. So if you get them an open source solution, you don't need to pay for the open source solution. It might not be the smoothest experience there is, but it is legal and fully functional for their needs.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
But still, there wasn't any wiggle room to help them out without being tempted to, on the moral aspect. Like,
if someone comes to me with let's say, if someone comes to me with a solution that they have found themselves or they've been provided for somewhere and they need my help to execute, I was able to provide the execution of that solution. Yeah.
Wonderful. After that, how did that experience help you acquire? What are some of the skills that you acquired from that experience?
I acquired skills of communicating to non-technical people to explain technical concepts in a less technical fashion, to communicate technical information to a novice user. That's one of the things that I was able to get from the experience of working with students. The other is the ability to actively listen. When someone is trying to explain to you a complex concept in a simple way, you need to be able to translate that into technical aspects that you can actually execute and solve the problem. So I was able to pick that up during that experience.
Wow.
Yeah.
How did this align with your attachment, industrial attachment? Did it like augment the experience, or was it a resistance?
It did line up quite nicely with my industrial attachment, because when I went for industrial attachment, I found a position in an IT officer. I found an IT officer position which aligns with user support. So it was hand in hand.
Wow.
Yeah.
In most cases, you find like people going for industrial attachment and they're in conflict because at that particular stage they are not introduced to certain concepts such as the ethical part of working, especially to do with confidentiality of the data and just the moral aspect still,
Yeah.
discipline, and some of these things they might find it hard to cope with the corporate world.
Yeah.
So you had a smooth sailing.
Yes, it was smooth sailing. I believe I'm always morally upright. I'm more inclined to, I have the inclination to be morally upright. So there wasn't much friction in the concept of upholding the standard of the organization and service provision in a professional fashion.
One will argue you also had a smooth sailing because the regulation, the IT regulations and the data protections acts were not implemented back then. There's not much policy going on.
The regulations are mostly apply to getting certified before you are able to practice your practitioner. It doesn't change much in the way you execute. It has to do with your training and readiness for executing that role. Yeah.
So for any person who is in, or maybe you're on an industrial attachment, and for any student out there, it's like that's a space, a training space where they can learn and they can commit certain offenses without any legal repercussions.
If you're looking to commit offenses, you'd get into the hacking space. Yeah. In our country, when you do hacking, you actually take a great deal of risk to self. You might go to prison, but it's something that is actually a space in the market where you can be an ethical hacker. The problem would be where to practice this actual hacking, because it's in the real world where you get real experience. However, these other things, you don't really need to risk breaking the law in order to gain experience. However, given that there is not that tight of a regulation around IT, would encourage anyone who's looking to get into this space to start executing as early as possible. Even a high schooler would be able to execute on the path that they choose.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's good encouragement and word of knowledge to them. So after graduating,
Yeah.
let's speak a little bit about that journey. Now you've just come out of campus, you are job hunting. So how was it for you? How was the journey?
The journey was pretty good. I got absorbed almost immediately, I would say. I did a great deal of applying. They say that when you don't have a job, your full-time job is applying for jobs. I did exactly that, although I didn't know that at the time. I didn't know that was a thing at the time. But I went full in. I think I was advised by someone to do that, so I did, and I was able to